around to perhaps hold this together, and that would maybe instigate that we could, see some further development from this. Now, if it stays on this track and holds together, Harvard would be the next town in place. So in Harvard, you also want to take precautions. 7:29 would be the timing if it holds together to make it into your neighborhood. So this, just to put it in perspective, this is the state line between Illinois and Wisconsin, and Fontana, Wisconsin. That's a popular spot too on Geneva Lake, of course, with Lake Geneva there and all those resort areas, and now people have homes up there as well. This is moving away from that area and moving into McHenry County. That's why we're on the air with you, because McHenry County viewers, we want you to be prepared and take cover from this storm, especially if you live in the northwest quadrant of McHenry County. So we have to remember that in places like Murrow and Crystal Lake even, and McHenry itself, just because of this storm center moving in, and it's not the only cell that we're seeing. We could see more of these fire up. As I mentioned, the storm chances staying with us till about 10 o'clock tonight, because we have enough instability around to touch off these cells. However, we weren't expecting this to really take place when we were looking at earlier discussions from the Storm Prediction Center and just different model data and things like that. It was very isolated, but it's just enough to show us this funnel cloud that showed up for a storm spotter to see, and then they contacted the Milwaukee National Weather Service, and their meteorologist went ahead and kind of diagnosed the cell itself, noticing that there is some rotation with that. So I have the storm track up on it, letting you know that the towns like Marengo, you want to be on watch for that. Also Crystal Lake, also McHenry too, Algonquin possibly for thunderstorm activity as well because of that movement to the south and east. But right now it is focused here very close to the Wisconsin line. So we'll go back to the radar to show you how these thunderstorms are scattered about from Elkhorn to Walworth to Bloomfield to Burlington, not really to Salem yet, but McHenry, I think you're going to see shower and thunderstorm activity from this. Same with Woodstock too, and Antioch as well, because of the southeast movement of these cells. I'll put this into motion so you can see how these are moving, and they're moving from the northwest to the southeast. It's very isolated activity, but it's that one cell right here that has prompted the tornado warning. There's one for southern Wisconsin here in Walworth County, and then across the state line for Boone County and also McHenry County. So the one here is in effect until 7:30 this evening, but we have to be on watch for any of these thunderstorms this evening that step over the state line into McHenry County and eventually Lake and Cook, because the potential is there that really any of these could start to rotate or just start to spin a little bit, or maybe show off a funnel cloud, and that's exactly what happened with this particular cell here. So as we take a look again at the radar and stop it here just to give you a better look at it, and we'll check the velocity as well, we can still see that area of circulation that the National Weather Service is looking at, and their concern is that it's still holding together. Even though it's not that strong of a rotation, it's holding together enough that it has prompted this tornado warning. Because also when you have visuals, I'll just track this while I'm talking so you can see it, but also when they have visuals on a funnel cloud, that means, that a tornado is certainly possible, because you have an unstable environment still. You could probably feel it was still pretty humid today, even though temperatures weren't extremely hot, but we were in the upper 70s and still are away from the rain. But the track of this one is moving into an area that could see further development. We still have daylight. It's only 7:08, and as it moves to the south and east, it could tap some of that heat, a little bit of that moisture as well. The way this is a little different than yesterday is yesterday we actually had more of a system coming in. This is more isolated in nature. So the latest from the National Weather Service, I'm just looking now, they're saying that they're still seeing signs of that broad rotation, kind of like what we were just looking at on the velocity. Not a tight couplet, but some rotation where you see those red areas next to the green areas in relation to where the radar is. With this one coming out of Milwaukee, I'm using the Milwaukee radar right now just because of the area of where the storm is. So it still is far from the radar site as well, and that makes it tough to see these as well. But it's moving into this environment. It's not highly unstable here, but it's unstable enough that it could hold together some of this activity. So we're just keeping an eye on this storm as it moves to the south and east. So this is a tornado warning that is in effect until 7:30, and it's for northwestern McHenry County and also for Walworth County in Wisconsin. So I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like here on a bigger picture so you can get a vantage point. McHenry County is here, Walworth, Wisconsin is here, Fontana, Lake Geneva right about here, Delavan, this is where it started, just to the west of Delavan over a town named Sharon, and then started sliding southeastward, and now that rain is moving into McHenry County. So a wider view showing we have another cluster here near Janesville, and that's kind of this isolated nature. Any of these have the potential to show a little bit of a spin just because of the environment today. Also, Burlington is having some activity too, and it's that southeasterly movement that we're watching. So here are the stats on this tornado warning. If you're just tuning in, we do have a tornado warning now that has moved from Walworth County. They still have a warning as well, but it moved across the state line for Boone County and McHenry County, and this is in effect until 7:30 this evening. Not only have the storm spotters visually made contact with a funnel cloud and reported back to the National Weather Service in Milwaukee, well, the meteorologists there went in and looked at the velocity signatures, and they did see some rotation. So that's why this warning was prompted first by the Milwaukee office for their county here in Walworth, and then they paired up with the National Weather Service here in Chicago, which is located in Romeoville. And at that point, then they decided in Romeoville that they would put one out for the Chicago area for McHenry County. It's the northwest corner of the county that we're watching here for possibilities of tornadic activity. There is a funnel cloud that has been sighted by trained storm spotters, and as you know, a funnel cloud that just extends from the parent cloud is just that. But once it makes contact with the ground and you start to see that debris signature, maybe it's pulling up dirt from a farm or structures or who knows what, it starts to turn colors and get dark probably from all that debris, and then that is when it is determined to be a tornado on the ground. But right now this is just radar indicated rotation and also visuals from a trained storm spotter of that rotation. Now the rotation is still there, but it is a little bit broad. So here's a look at the radar, current radar right now, and I can put this into motion because we can look at that storm near Janesville too and just see where it is headed. There we go. Okay, so everything moving southeastward. So here's that cell right there near Janesville. That wants to almost follow the same path as everything moves southeastward. And then we're seeing this cluster of storms east of the Quad Cities that moved through the Quad Cities just now, and that's also sliding southeast. But the tornado warning we're most interested in is right here, and that is the one that has prompted this warning. So the closer look at it, showing you, yes, Janesville has a little cluster of activity there, but between Burlington, some rain is trying to make its way to McHenry, but it's right about here where we see that heavier thunderstorm activity, and it's moving to the southeast only at 15 miles per hour. Originally, they thought it was 20 miles per hour, but then as you evaluate it with radar and they take a closer look at it too, and the storm can change in structure as well, that the timing can change from it. So when we look closer here at the velocity signature of it, we are noticing now that that rotation has broadened up a bit. Remember before when we looked at it, there was much more of a block, almost a bigger area of red, very close to a bigger area of green. So to me, it clearly shows some rotation here, but we don't have that couplet visible like we saw when we first came on the air about 15 minutes ago. So this is perhaps good news, but just know that that rotation is still possible. So it could prompt a quick spin up of activity too. So this is the area that we're watching for northwestern McHenry County, and it's until 7:30 that we have this tornado warning in effect, and it's because of that visual that a storm spotter saw this rotation, and when you marry that with what we're looking at on radar, that's telling us too. So the second one I was looking at near Janesville, maybe a little bit of weak rotation with that, but really the warned storm is the one that we are looking at for possibilities of it extending farther to the south and east. It has very slow forward speed on it. In fact, it's only moving at 15 miles per hour, and it is pretty far from our radar. That's why I was trying to get a better view of it here for you. when they're way near the state line, you're kind of using the Milwaukee radar for a moment and then our radar for a moment just to get the best vantage point that you can out of it. So that sweep right there is coming from Milwaukee to give us the view of it. And it's moving southeast rather slowly at about 15 miles per hour. So we'll put a new track on it just to see if anything changed with that. And you usually put the track right where you see that area of rotation showing up on the radar display. But I guess what's good news is the structure of it visually, for us anyway, looking at the velocity, has changed just a little bit too. So Chemung, we are seeing that this will continue moving southeast, 7:18 for you, so in about 3 minutes. So you do want to take cover in the lowest portion of your home and stay away from any windows, obviously, because you don't want to have any debris flying around. Dunham, 7:24, and then into Seneca. Now, the National Weather Service also is just reporting now that they received a call from a spotter that was located in Sharon, Wisconsin. That's the area where this originated, right at the southern portion of Wisconsin. And they were looking south, and they could see a rotating wall cloud, but no funnel visible this time. So that is what the latest is from the storm spotter just over the state line here up in Sharon, Wisconsin. And they are out there reporting into the National Weather Service, both in the Chicago office and Romeoville that we work with, and also to our friends up in Milwaukee at the National Weather Service there. So that is the reason for this tornado warning in effect until 7:30. So a wall cloud, you know, when you see that black, dark cloud just lowering, and then you look at the bottom base of it, and when you see those funnels, that's when the storm spotter then earlier had said the funnel was sighted. But it was only a funnel cloud, not a tornado, because it hasn't made contact with the ground. But once it does that, then it would be configured as a tornado. But right now, it's just the visuals of the funnel, the wall cloud, and also this rotation that we see on radar. Even though it's broadening up just a bit, kind of letting go a little bit, it is still showing that rotation. So it's Boone County here and also into McHenry County where we have this tornado warning in effect until 7:30. So you can see this red box here. So places like Marengo, like Crystal Lake, even Algonquin, you're going to see some of this thunderstorm activity moving to the south and east. It's very slow movement. It's been moving southeast at about 15 miles per hour. So that tells me that these storms are kind of just firing up and not moving in place much. But this is the cell that stepped across the state line. We also have some rain here south of Burlington that's looking pretty healthy too. So it wouldn't take much with these thunderstorms that are out today to have a quick spin up, but overall the environment is moderately, favorable to have some instability form. I wanted to put this into motion for you so you can see how it's moving southeastward, starting to step into McHenry County, eventually Lake County too, and perhaps northern Cook County. But right now, the only tornado warning is the one we're seeing here in McHenry County. So as we keep checking the radar, we're watching this other cell south of Janesville. That one is showing signs of weakening, I just noticed. Let's get that on the board, because that was significant too, because that one basically would be following the tracks of this one. See how when we have it in motion there, you can see how it looked way more impressive around Evansville, Wisconsin, and then kind of weakening just a bit near Beloit, between Beloit and Janesville, really, along the 39 corridor there. So moving southeastward, that is a very good sign to have that particular cell show a little bit of weakening. But the one here that moved through Walworth and Sharon, that's the one that we're looking at. Okay, so we do have a thunderstorm over Harvard now, moving southeast at 15 miles per hour. So the timing, the forward speed has not changed whatsoever on this particular cell. So if you're just joining us here, I just want to give you an idea of what area we are looking at. And this is Boone County and also McHenry County. So what I'm seeing now is that the warning is over for Walworth County because it has moved out of the state of Wisconsin and moved into Illinois. This is a very isolated area of activity. It's not like yesterday where we had multiple areas of lines of thunderstorms that had spin-ups all along them with multiple vortices spinning up. But this is just a very isolated cell that is showing that rotation. So it's for Boone and McHenry County until 7:30 that we have this tornado warning. So storm spotters out there are keeping a close eye on this cell to see if there's any changes with it, but so far they're reporting seeing a rotating wall cloud and not a funnel at this point. So that's the latest from the storm spotters that are very near that Wisconsin line. Let's look at the radar now and show you, oh good, this one south of Janesville has weakened quite a bit. That's good. And then this cell is still holding together though for McHenry County. Now the Weather Service also is saying that it's becoming a little less organized, but still showing some signs of that weak rotation. So they're hoping that it starts to further weaken as it moves southeast. It's just moving southeastward so incredibly slowly. Let's take a closer look at it too and see if we can get an idea of any other towns that are in the area of that storm as it moves southeastward. So we can zoom in a little bit tighter here because now we're getting closer to McHenry itself, the town. But here's Walworth, Wisconsin. So Heartland, you have this storm coming in for you, so do watch for that. And you probably want to take cover in the lowest portion of your home away from windows. I think that's the biggest thing too, is just to stay away from windows. You want to put as many walls between you and the outdoors as possible and go to the lowest level of your home as well. Here's Greenwood, and then Richmond is off to the east. So the movement of this, I see they're changing the polygon just a little bit too. It is moving southeast rather slowly at 15. So here's Woodstock and then Seneca down to the south. So this cell is showing some weak rotation as it makes its way through McHenry County into the Heartland area. So if you live in Heartland, you want to take cover from this particular cell. Let's look at the velocity now that we had a few sweeps go by, and you can see that we were looking at that thunderstorm activity, the rain over here, but the actual rotation is closer to Chemung. And here is the latest sweep coming out of the Milwaukee radar. So it is very far from the radar itself, so that can make it harder for us to get a really close vantage point on it. But this is telling us that the center of it, anyway, where we can track it, is right where those red areas meet the green areas in consideration with which radar we're using. We're using the Wisconsin radar from Milwaukee, so you're looking at the red areas next to the green areas where they're very close together to try to see if you see that couplet or that area of rotation. So when we do a storm track, that's exactly where we want to focus on and then pull to the speed. And it's a slow moving speed. It's only going at 15 miles per hour to the south and east. So it is very much over Chemung right now. So if you live in that community in McHenry County, you do want to take cover in the lowest level of your home away from windows. Put as many walls between you and the outdoors as possible. Dunham, this is the next place that it could hold together. And that would happen at 7:32. And it's moving so slowly. Yes, it's on line to make its way to Woodstock, but boy, it's only going 15 miles per hour to the south and east. But just know, if it pops another thunderstorm, then that activity also will slide southeastward. So McHenry County and Lake County too could kind of fill in, I think, with some of this thunderstorm activity, and some of this could create a quick spin up, and that's exactly what happened with this particular cell. So I'll go back to the radar so you can get a better view of it. So that rotation we were looking at is back here. Heaviest rain is on the right side of the system, and I'll pull out this way. So here is Walworth, just to the north of the state line. Hebron here, Greenwood, Heartland, and moving southeast toward Heartland. So also in Crystal Lake, you want to watch for this, and Marengo too, because those are places where if anything else developed out of this and maybe another cell formed, it would be moving southeast. So you saw that radar sweep go by and the radar return just sort of jumped. Well, that's our new update now, showing how this very heavy rain now is closing in on the north side of Heartland. Woodstock too, here's Greenwood. This is McHenry County that I'm zoomed in into because of this tornado warning that's in effect for a few more minutes until 7:30. It'll be interesting to see if they extend it longer or if they let it go. They keep watching for signs of this rotation to see if it tightens up at all, and it still is visible on the velocity signature. The radar is showing some very heavy rain that is moving southeastward. I want to go out and zoom out just a little bit too to show you the movement of these cells so you can see what we were watching all afternoon, how isolated this is. It's such a different radar picture than we saw yesterday. So this tiny red polygon, that is our tornado warning, and that is for Boone County and McHenry County, and it's the northwest corner of McHenry County. It's dropped now for Walworth, Wisconsin, because that activity has moved on and it's moved into McHenry County. So that's why McHenry is the focus for this rotating thunderstorm. So storm spotters have been out in southeast Wisconsin and southwest Wisconsin all day, kind of looking at this area just to see if there was anything forming. And all day was pretty quiet. But then last hour, the storm spotter noticed that funnel cloud coming out of this particular cell when it started up here near Sharon, Wisconsin, and it showed signs of rotation because the funnel was visible. Now, the funnel is not a tornado. A funnel cloud extends from the parent cloud, but it's not touching the ground, so it's just a funnel cloud. Now, if it were to touch the ground, then you would see the debris signature coming up. You would see a color change, perhaps, if it picks up a structure and you start seeing, debris into the air. It could darken up a bit, or if it went over a farm field and picked up a lot of anything like that, it would start to change colors. But if it's a funnel, and it could extend and look super scary, but then all of a sudden it pulls away and just goes back away and dissipates, that could happen too. Now, this one has not made contact with the ground. They have no debris signature, no tornado. It is clearly a visual that a storm spotter noted and contacted the Milwaukee National Weather Service to tell them that there was a healthy thunderstorm showing signs of rotation because of the visible funnel. Well, now we don't have a visible funnel. The latest from the National Weather Service is that there's a rotating wall cloud. That's a little different. However, that tells you that it clearly is rotating. So then the National Weather Service in Milwaukee takes a diagnosis of the radar to see if you see that rotation showing up, and they did. So that's what prompted the warning for Walworth County. But now Chicago, the Romeoville office gets involved because they're in contact with the Milwaukee office, and they decided to extend that warning now into their zone, which they watch, and they are the ones in Romeoville, the National Weather Service. They issue the warnings, the tornado warnings. They determine the warning start time and stop time, and if it's going to be extended. Our job is to broadcast it to you and evaluate the storms with you as well. But to give you an idea, we're all kind of looking at the same data as far as radar goes, but they are the ones that actually issue the tornado warning. So now that it is south of the state line and in Illinois, this is the one. Now this falls under the jurisdiction of our National Weather Service here in Romeoville. So here is the tornado warning that we are talking about. I'm going to back it up just a little bit so you can get a bigger picture. So isolated in nature here. And this is for Boone and McHenry County until 7:30, so just a couple more minutes. Now, the storm is still showing some signs of weak rotation, and we're just going to continue to monitor that one. As far as other storms go around the area, I'm going to put it back into radar mode so we could take a look. This one really fizzled out south of Janesville, thank goodness, because it was looking very impressive last hour, but now it's starting to weaken. In Burlington here, though, we still have thunderstorm activity, so it wouldn't take much for any of these really to start to show some signs of rotation if it should do that. But right now, what we're seeing is just this warning is the only warning that we have out there, and it's for McHenry County for this area of rotation. I want to take a tighter look at it here on our velocity signature just to see, since we had so many sweeps go by, if we can see that. Yes, we still see that little couplet there showing the sign that there is some rotation with this cell. So when we turn on our Doppler wind tool, it shows us that you see this area of red next to the green, right next to it with nothing in between, and you have to consider which radar you're using, whether it be Milwaukee or Chicago, and then you can say that, you know, yes, there's rotation, or no, there isn't. But this kind of shows you that there is some weak rotation with this. It is moving so slowly to the southeast at 15 miles per hour. That's it. So it is going to take its time moving southeastward. But Heartland right now, very heavy rain for you. I'm going to switch radar super quick so you can see how this wall of rain is moving in now. So very heavy rain with this. We can check our lightning detection feature now too, just to see if there's a lot of lightning with this at all. Putting it on, yeah, a new strike there, sure. Okay, so that's showing up on the radar as well. So do watch for that. And in the path of this tornado warning, you definitely want to take cover if you're watching from the area that is under the warning. That would be northwestern McHenry County. Also, if you're watching us from eastern Boone County, that's another spot where we do have this warned storm in effect. So it's in effect for a few more minutes here for northwestern McHenry County. Here's a wider view of it as it moves east. Okay, so then they're also considering a possible funnel cloud located in Harvard. So that's another thing they're going to be watching. But I can see that the warning plot has gone away. I don't see them releasing this warning just yet, so we're going to stick with it for a couple minutes here just to make sure that it is gone. But it was due to expire at 7:30, and it is 7:30, and it did come off. But it wouldn't surprise me if there is that funnel cloud in the Harvard area. Then they would go ahead and issue another one just because of the danger of these thunderstorms. If they can show signs of that quick spin up, that's what you have to be so cautious about, because it wouldn't take much to do that with the environment we have. It's not super unstable, but it's unstable enough that when you get these thunderstorms and then they start to show those signs of rotation, that's when you can get into trouble with it as it moves southeastward. So we'll tighten it up a little bit here just to look at where we are seeing this heaviest rain and thunderstorm activity in northern McHenry County. So Heartland, you are seeing very heavy rain there. This is about to close in on you in Woodstock, and also Bull Valley. That's another area where you do want to be very careful here tonight because of this activity moving in for you, because everything is sliding southeastward. So the Weather Service saying that Heartland possibility of a funnel cloud, they have not received any storm reports from any storm spotters, so they're just keeping an eye on it as well. But still showing signs of weak rotation. That's been the case for us for this one. And as we go through time, I think we could still see thunderstorms holding together that would move not only into McHenry County, but into Lake County as well, and Cook County too. Between now and 10 o'clock, I think, is going to be our greatest time frame to have some thunderstorms moving in. Again, they're very isolated in nature. Even though I have this zoomed in so tight, it's one cell here for the northern portion of McHenry County. So it's Greenwood here, Heartland here, but the heavy rain in Heartland now is starting to move into Woodstock and Bull Valley. So those are two areas where you can expect this very heavy rain to move into the picture. So you want to watch for that as well. So we will keep you posted here as we go through the evening, because we want to watch to make sure that nothing else shows signs of rotation. So let's take a check now on the current warnings that are out there. So they did allow this tornado warning to expire across McHenry County, but you do want to stay with CBS 2 and with our streaming service, CBS News Chicago, because we will be on immediately if another tornado warning is issued. So between now and 10 o'clock is our best timing to see these thunderstorms move from Wisconsin and close in on Chicago as well. And we'll keep you up to date throughout the evening. I'm meteorologist Mary Kay Kleist.
A tornado outbreak in the Chicago area, even bigger than we first thought. And today we're getting a clear picture of the damage done. The twisters ripping apart homes and businesses.
We have live team coverage of the destruction and also new details from the National Weather Service on the ground looking at all that damage. We begin with CBS 2's Chris Ty. He's in one of the hardest hit areas, Elgin. Chris?
Joe and Erica, you had 2 tornadoes in Elgin, some of them packing up to 100-mile-an-hour winds. You can see some of what is left behind here. Down the way, you can see trees tipped over. Some trees have already been taken down. Houses have buckled. Garages have collapsed. It is really hot this afternoon as the cleanup really begins. Folks can't believe how quickly things happened in just a matter of seconds, as cleanup is now going to last weeks.
A 5-foot in diameter tree just snapped over, like the one back there. That's power. I mean, that is like unbelievable power.
The power that ripped through Eric Nosel's property last night, that took down sheds and decades-old trees, crisscrossed the community. Chopper 2 shows the straight line of damage it left behind.
It was so fast.
Chunks of subdivisions uninhabitable, chunks of homes on other people's yards.
We got the car in and we got to the basement and it hit.
But hit hardest more rural areas.
I think a big reason that these doors or the whole barn didn't come down is luckily these windows were open, so the air could travel through.
That lucky break kept Gunnar Peterson's horses, Nutmeg and Cinnamon, safe.
I just wasn't sure what was going to go on, and it was scary, but unreal. It's very unreal.
What's very real is the good fortune that there were no major injuries reported from all of this.
And like it tore that up, but the house is 20 feet from that tree and nothing.
He and his girlfriend were recording this tornado at a nearby golf course while another was ravaging their property.
Unbeknownst to us, this was happening.
I'm feeling very grateful that I'm safe. You know, all of my neighbors are safe.
And you can hear those earth movers and chainsaws off in the distance, and the damage is as far as the eye can see here all around this pocket of Kane County. There were crews lined up from as far away as Wisconsin and Indiana this morning trying to make some money and help out these homeowners who have days, if not weeks, of cleanup ahead. In Elgin, Chris Ty, CBS 2 News.
Also in the northwest suburbs and about 20 minutes away from Elgin, residents are cleaning up in Huntley. Building officials told several families they'll need to move out of their homes because of roof damage. They now have tarps over 2 of the 4-plex buildings. A neighbor told us she's worried for the people who were hardest hit.
The latest numbers now have at least 7 confirmed tornadoes. Today, the National Weather Service dispatched crews to survey the damage left behind from yesterday's dangerous winds, like a path you see here through a field in Elgin, trying to figure out just how severe those storms were.
CBS 2's Sabrina Franza is in Streamwood. She caught up with one of those crews. Sabrina.
Well, the National Weather Service is looking into things like this: fallen branches, split trees, debris, comparing that debris to debris of storms past and using all of that information to find out if things like this were caused by tornadoes.
It does look like there were tornadoes in the Chicagoland area yesterday.
David King is a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, with one of the crews across the Chicago area assessing what the storm left behind.
You're humbled. You kind of remember the forces of nature and just how much control they really have. So it's humbling, it's disheartening, but you also see the spirit of Chicago and the resolve that the people have.
The weather county that is showing signs of rotation. We are pulling the radar from Milwaukee at the moment. It's kind of far from our radar and Milwaukee's radar. It's not super close to it, so we still have a vantage point of it, though. But you have to know which radar you're using. And with each sweep, we're getting an update just to see if it is tightening or if it is still holding as a weak rotation or if it's releasing. And I'm seeing that it is still holding together as a weaker rotation, but it is clearly visible that the National Weather Service is monitoring this. So it's moving southeastward, and it's moving southeast at 20 miles per hour. So it is very slow moving. The other one was moving at about 15. This one is moving at 20 miles per hour, and that's been the case, the slow movement with these. And we can put a track on this so you can get an idea of who is going to have this bad weather move in. And what we'll do is we have it on the velocity signature just so we can pick the area of rotation, because this is a large polygon, right? And we want to actually pick this portion of the storm. That's the worst part of it, showing the rotation, and then pull 20 miles per hour down to the south and east to show us that Lake in the Hills may be a place that is affected from this cell as it moves into Woodstock too. So on radar, what we're looking at is we see that that a lot of the rain is east of this, right? And the rotation itself is still back in the center of this polygon back here. So places like Woodstock and McHenry and Oakwood Hills, and maybe even eventually Algonquin, if these kind of fill in, these thunderstorms will be moving into Lake County as well. So right now, this is a tornado warning in effect for McHenry County until 8 o'clock tonight. Let's look closer to and see if we can see any towns of any interest in particular that are near here. It's a remote area of McHenry County, but here's Heartland, and that's a spot getting some very heavy rain right now. So I think the rainfall rates with this too will be pretty healthy if you get underneath one of these cells, but it's the rotating factor of it that has everybody concerned. And when we look for the rotation, this is what the National Weather Service is looking at. This area here, it isn't super tight, but it is clearly showing rotation where you have those green areas very near the red areas, just to keep it simple. So we're looking at 14 here. This is Harvard. So the storm spotters noted that wall cloud near Harvard. And then here's 14. Here's Dunham. So this is Airport Road, cutting right in the middle, or McGuire Road, same name. And basically that's where we're seeing that area of rotation. So you do want to take cover. If you live in this area or live where this warning is in the north and north central parts of McHenry County, that's where we do have this tornado warning in effect. So I want to back it up just a bit to show you where we have this warning, because damage is possible with wind damage with this. So it's McHenry County only this time, not Boone County any longer, because it is moving into the southeastern portions here. So it's sliding southeast, pulling away from Wisconsin. So this is radar indicated rotation, says the National Weather Service, and also storm spotters have been out and about in southern Wisconsin, keeping an eye out for those funnel clouds, keeping an eye out for any possible tornadic activity as well. Because a funnel cloud, as you know, extends from the cloud, but it does not make contact with the ground, and a tornado would make contact with the ground. It's a funnel that forms and then reaches the ground. Then you see the debris signature, and you see maybe a color change because of whatever it is scattering into the sky, whether it be a structure or dirt or farmland, whatever it is. That's when it starts to change color on it. But right now what we're seeing is that it's very isolated in nature. We don't see a lot of thunderstorm activity coming our way from the north. Instead, it's very isolated. So we will switch it over here to, let's go to the Chicago, our radar, and see if we have a different vantage point of it. So, well, first of all, I wanted to see this, see if anything else was happening around Madison upstream. See, that's good news too. And also notice this is showing signs of weakening as this activity slides away from Lake Geneva, almost bleeding into Kenosha County as well. So that's showing signs of weakening just a bit. But everything has been moving from the northwest to the southeast. So that is why we are watching this, even though it's so isolated. It's just not impressive when you look at the radar picture like this as a whole. But when you look at it tightly and turn on certain tools, that's when you can really see that actually you do have a rotating thunderstorm. So that's why we have this tornado warning. Now for a different portion of McHenry County, we're getting more into the middle of the county, say, because of the movement of this. So we can put a track on this for you so you can get an idea as it moves southeastward. And I think that with the slow forward speed too, it's not going to be moving down into, say, Kane County or DeKalb County or Cook County, because it is so slow to move. It's either going to dissipate eventually or just start expanding and then sliding maybe into Lake County and filling into northern Cook, perhaps. But it was because of a sighted funnel cloud near Harvard that has prompted this warning right now. So it's a storm spotter report from Harvard with the funnel cloud added to the fact that we see the rotation on radar, and so does the National Weather Service. So right now your heavy rain is over Heartland itself, and then when we look at the velocity, we can look at the winds, the Doppler winds. This is our area that we are looking at. This is the area of rotation, and that's what has prompted this tornado warning. So this tornado warning in effect until 8 o'clock. So if you live in Heartland, you definitely want to take cover in the lowest level of your home. And Dunham, that's another place, because this rotation is almost right overhead. So here's Harvard, where we had the sighting of the funnel cloud officially from the storm spotter. That came in at 7:30 this evening. So the National Weather Service went right ahead and decided to extend the tornado warning until 8 o'clock to keep a close eye on this rotation, which is still visible on the velocity signature. So when we look at Doppler winds, we have so many tools to use, and it's so helpful to know whether or not there is rotation. So right now, I would say the towns of Harvard and Dunham, those are the two right now that are underneath that thunderstorm that is showing the signs of rotation. So we see the rotation, and then when we switch to radar, it's interesting to note all the heavy rain is just on the east side of this. So I'll zoom this out so you can get a little better idea how this is starting to fill in, and it's really favoring the right side of that polygon as it moves southeastward. So into Harvard and also into Woodstock. So Woodstock, you're starting to get some rain, and you could have some heavy rain too. So here's the positioning of it. I wanted to show you the state line is up here. It originally started in Walworth County. We had a report in Sharon, Wisconsin, of a funnel cloud that an official storm spotter spotted, and then talked to the National Weather Service in Milwaukee, and they pieced it together by evaluating with their radar to see that mid-level rotation. So they issued a tornado warning for Walworth County. Then they were in touch with our National Weather Service in Romeoville, and they took a look at it and decided, since it's moving southeastward into McHenry County, then they prompted our warning. So our office in Romeoville, they serve Chicago, and they decide whether or not there are tornado warnings, and then we broadcast them to you. But right now we're looking at the heaviest rain here that is moving into Woodstock and also moving into Greenwood as well. This is a very slow moving cell, so it could bring some very heavy rain as it just sort of repeats in the same place and kind of inches by. And that's been the case with these very, very slow movers. Let's check now that we've had a few sweeps of the radar. We still see that area of rotation here right in the center of the polygon. That's the spot that we are looking at that is showing that rotation perhaps. And they did have that report of the funnel cloud, and that was reported near Harvard, so in McHenry County. And the movement now is back to 15 miles per hour. So as we take a look at some of the towns where you should take cover immediately, Heartland obviously because it's right overhead, and then as we get into Woodstock and eventually into Ridgefield as well. So this is the area we're watching where we do have the tornado warning in effect, a strong area of heavy rain here on the east side of that rotation. The rotation's right about here, and this is where we have the heaviest weather. So Greenwood, Woodstock, very heavy rain starting to move in for you, and the movement of the rain overall is to the southeast. I want to put this into motion so you can see how this strength of this, it's actually holding together. It's pretty healthy, and it is moving right to you in Woodstock. So watch for that. Also into the Greenwood area as well. But the area of rotation is right about here with the heavy rain on the right side of that. So we still have this tornado warning in effect for McHenry County, and that's in effect until 8 o'clock this evening, just because of that rotation that's showing up. And there's some intensity here showing up on that radar. You can see that. And I want to widen out just a little bit more too to show you that earlier today we were watching all these storms near La Crosse move to Madison. And now it's quieted down so much over southern Wisconsin. We just have this isolated area that we're watching now in McHenry County. Also keeping an eye on what's happening out here from the Quad Cities, this activity moving to the south and east. But right now that is not severe in nature. It is this one up in McHenry County that has prompted the tornado warning for us. And it's moving into an environment that has just enough instability to perhaps hold it together as a rotating thunderstorm and making a funnel cloud out of it, and that's why we have this tornado warning in effect. So here are the stats on it. Damaging winds certainly possible. It's a tornado warning for McHenry County, and now it's moved a little more closer to the central portions of the county, and it is radar indicated. So that tells us that the National Weather Service is still monitoring it for possibilities of rotation. You can see it here showing up on the when we scan the radar there. We're using the radar out of Wisconsin just because it is a little closer to the cell. It's kind of a tough one to pinpoint because it's far enough from our radar and far enough from the Wisconsin one as well. Our radar coming down from here, you can see when we give it a sweep to see an update on it, it is holding its strength. So it is an impressive looking storm as it moves southeastward. And that southeastward slow movement is what's going to be bringing that heavy rain. So as far as heavy rain goes, we are going to keep heavy rain in the forecast with this area of McHenry County. So that wall of rain is inching along. And I'm just going to put this timing out just so you can see who's going to be seeing that rain as it slides southeastward. So Woodstock first and then heading into McHenry as well. So on radar right now, we do have this polygon showing up indicating where we have this tornado warning, and it was Harvard where we have reports of that funnel cloud that storm spotter noticed, and that's why we have this tornado warning in effect here until 8 o'clock tonight. So it's 7:49 right now, so we're still watching this particular storm. Now we can take a tighter look at it, and you can see northern McHenry County kind of filling in with rain here. There's a new update when the sweep went by, and you can see how I'm going to slide it over a little bit more to the right just so you can see some of the towns that are affected with this. So Woodstock, Greenwood, McHenry, these are all areas that are under the gun for the possibility of severe weather right now, because we could have rotating thunderstorm activity move in with damaging wind threats as well. So if you're watching even from Woodstock or Greenwood, I would suggest being in your safe place, staying away from windows, going to the lowest level of your home and putting as many walls between you and the outdoors as possible just to be safe as this storm is overhead, just because of the strong winds that would accompany it and also the fact that it is showing signs of rotation, not only by the storm spotter's eye, but also when we look at it on radar. So right now, the heavy rain moving into Greenwood, moving into Woodstock, that's the story as it moves southeastward at 15 miles per hour. And as we look a little tighter at the core, here's Heartland. This is the area that had reports, too, of some very heavy rain, and that funnel cloud was reported in the Harvard area, which is just to the north of here. But Heartland now, you are in on the heavy, heavy rain with this cell. And as we look at the rotation portion of it, that rotation now is just on the west side of you. So here is Highway 14, here is Heartland, so it's really the west side right here. This is our area that we're watching for that rotation, possibly a funnel cloud. If the storm spotter just saw that and we see this rotation showing up as well, not much out here around 14, but when we look at the radar, we can zoom it out just a little bit so you can see that this is a very isolated storm in nature, and it is creating some very heavy rain and also the danger of a tornado. So Heartland is an area that we are going to watch very carefully. Right now, some extremely heavy rain over you. Here is 14, here's 47, and it's right between that where we have this thunderstorm that is showing signs of rotation and also creating those heavy rains. Now, this storm itself is very isolated in nature because we haven't had a huge outbreak of thunderstorms today at all. In fact, I can widen this out just to show you how isolated this tornado warning is. So here's the warning right now. Here's Woodstock. So you want to take cover from this too, just because it is moving southeastward and the main rain with it too is moving in. And the danger with that, if the history of this cell was showing signs of a brief spin up, those are almost harder to see on radar and certainly harder to see in person, because if you're in Woodstock and it's just starting to rain and you're looking up at the sky and then it really starts raining, you're not going to be able to see that spin up. We call that a rain-wrapped tornado or a rain-wrapped funnel cloud or a rain-wrapped rotating thunderstorm, and you just lose the shape of it because you just can't see it because of the very intense rain like we have right about here. So it is raining very heavily, and it wouldn't take much for any of this to start spinning. That's the danger. That's why the National Weather Service went ahead with this tornado warning. So the town of Heartland, this is an area where you should be taking cover right now because you are under this tornado warning until 8 o'clock, and that rotation north of you in Harvard, well, that's all sliding southeastward. So you have to be super cautious with that and take precautions now and stay away from the windows and go to the lowest level of your home just because of the danger of this rotation with the thunderstorm. So we can see it here now, really moving into Heartland. It's broad, though. It's not tightly wound, but it's still visible. So there is some rotation with this cell, and that's why the tornado warning is holding true here. And it's in effect until 8 o'clock for McHenry County, just because we do see this broad area of rotation showing up. Even though all the rain, so if the rotation's here, the rain is on the right side of this whole system as it moves southeastward so slowly, creating very heavy rain. These pink returns right here, those are super heavy cells, moisture-loaded cells that are just kind of stalling in place and barely inching along, because if the storm itself is only moving to the southeast at 15 miles per hour, well, that's not really going very fast. So you probably will have some localized flooding just because of the slow forward speed of this system. But I'm going to back this up so you can see where we have what we're talking about, where the warnings are tonight. And they are very isolated. It's just this one portion of McHenry County. This activity you see here near Kenosha County, it's just rain right now, and also into Lake County. So right now there are no warnings for Lake or Kenosha County. It is all in McHenry. And it moved from the corner of the county almost to the center of the county. So that's our concern right now, is this tornado warning, because it is radar indicated rotation. Add to that, they have trained storm spotters out and about tonight in this vicinity. It all started over the state line in Sharon, Wisconsin, and a storm spotter noticed a clear funnel cloud, contacted the National Weather Service in Milwaukee and told them about it. They also looked at probably a picture off a phone, I would imagine, but then also looked at the radar and evaluated it when it was in Walworth County in Wisconsin and noticed the rotation. That prompted the first warning. Well, now it has moved to the Illinois office and our National Weather Service warning for McHenry County because the cell is still showing signs of rotation. So we still have 5 more minutes left on this tornado warning. It'll be interesting to see if they extend it farther to the south or if they expire it, depending on the structure of it and what they're hearing from storm spotters that are out and about in the area. But right now, I just wanted to show you this view from Milwaukee all the way to the North Shore to Evanston and then back to Rockford. And you can see how isolated this activity is, because right now south of Burlington into Kenosha, that is just light rain for the most part, and it's light rain here moving into Lake County. But it's this portion with that very heavy rain, so isolated, that has picked up that rotation. So we're getting that quick spin up, and that's what's so dangerous, because it's so unexpected when it's nobody else is getting rain really around the Chicago area, and there's a lot happening in summertime with people out and about enjoying themselves, and then it just takes one isolated cell, and that's exactly what we have here, because everything around Richmond, McHenry, Lake Villa, Kenosha, Powers Lake, it's all super light, but it's this cell right here that is very intense, that is creating that bit of rotation. So now that we've had a few sweeps go by with updates, let's take a look at that rotation. And it's still visible. It's still showing up here in this polygon. This is where we have the tornado warning. Back a few years ago, the National Weather Service used to warn the entire county, but now the technology has gotten so good that they can do it in a much smaller area. So everybody that lives within this polygon knows when to take precaution and always to have a plan, because as we learned from yesterday, seconds truly count when tornadoes spin up. And yesterday we had those lines of heavy thunderstorms moving in, and all of a sudden you started to see rotating thunderstorms on the leading edge of that line. So you knew there was a high chance that really any storm yesterday could have rotated. This is so isolated in nature, but it's the same idea that it is showing that rotation. We see it right here. That's why these tools are so exceptional for us to use, so we can get an idea of what's going on, you know, when you look under the hood and start to see this area of rotation moving in. So into Woodstock. Now, Crystal Lake, you're pretty far from that isolated cell, but you have to be on guard, because if this were to hold together, or all of a sudden we start seeing a few more isolated ones pop up ahead of that, then you would be under the danger as well. But for right now, it is a very isolated cell that we're looking at. So I want to put on the radar here. So even though we know, we just looked at it, the rotation is back here over the center part of this polygon, but the intense rain now is on you in Woodstock. So watch for that. And this is sliding toward you in Crystal Lake. McHenry has light rain right now, but you could see that intensify as well as this moves southeastward. And it is moving southeast at about 15 miles per hour. That's been the case for us with these. But Heartland, that was the place, and I'm zooming in on you because you have intense rain right now. That's the spot where the storm spotters could see the funnel that was visible that prompted this particular warning. So from Heartland right now to Greenwood to Bull Valley and Woodstock, these are all places where I think you should take precautions. Even though Woodstock is technically not in this polygon, you're close enough, and it's moving southeastward, that I would take cover. At least go in the basement if you have it, or an interior room, and put as many walls between you and the outdoors as possible. And you want to stay away from windows as well, obviously. We saw yesterday so much damage. Thankfully, we didn't have a lot of injuries or fatalities with that. It was so, the damage was so incredible, it was almost hard to believe. And you just want to take precaution, because you don't want to be caught off guard or near a window when this is coming in your direction. So it's Heartland right now, where we are seeing that intense rain moving into Woodstock. Here's Bull Valley. It is extending here on the east side of this cell. It's kind of flattening out just a bit, bringing that heavy rain as it moves southeastward. So we are going to keep you posted as we go through the evening. I'm going to jump off now because the warning was allowed to expire at 8 o'clock. But if you live in McHenry County, do be on guard, because it wouldn't take much for these storms to spin up. But keep it here with CBS Chicago and CBS News Chicago, and we will update you throughout the evening. For now, I'm meteorologist Mary Kay Kleist. Maybe a scattered shower or storm between now and 10 o'clock. And then as we get into tomorrow, we have pop-up shower and storm chances. But as I mentioned, it's really late in the day and evening hours when we start to watch west of I-39. And after about 10 or 11 o'clock tomorrow night, we are going to see those heavier showers and storms moving in, creating those wind gusts to 45 miles per hour, and perhaps bringing some heavy rain at times. Some of that lingers on Saturday morning.
A Chicago couple trying to sell their property discovers they're getting hosed at the 11th hour by an $80,000 water bill.
Why wouldn't an alarm go off, a flag? There has to be some human oversight that would say, you know what, this doesn't make sense.
How the city pinned the nearly 600% increase on them, and what happened after CBS 2 started asking questions about the astronomical bill. That's all new at 10. We are just minutes away from a big celebration of music and inclusion at Chicago's most prominent venue.
Here's a live look at Millennium Park, where Big Frida is set to take the stage at the Pritzker Pavilion. Big Frida has been a pioneer of high-energy, New Orleans-style bounce music. Joining her on stage will be the hip-hop group The Femergy. The city's branding the event as a celebration of femmes and gender-expansive artists. The show runs from 6:30 to 9. Chicago is real. The people here are real, and they want their news to be real, I think.
We are doing something for our own community.
They're all busy. They're giving us a valuable resource, their time, and the trust they have in us to deliver the day's news in a real way. Laugh when you can, be serious when you need to. And that's alive and well on our set. We all get along great. We enjoy working with each other. You can't hide that, and it's on display every night.
Here's what you get with your average local news stream. Here's what you get with CBS News Chicago. More breaking live coverage.
A closer look at the inauguration of the new mayor.
More impactful interviews.
Today, we're finding solutions.
More First Alert weather team coverage.
There's all the clouds we've been dealing with all morning long.
More live content when you want it,
wherever you are.
CBS News Chicago. More of what you're streaming for.
At the CBS Evening News, we focus on solutions. We look at a story and we say, how do we make it relevant to people's lives? So this is what we eat to live longer. Finding solutions, giving people context and depth, how much money we can spend on groceries, finding solutions to healthcare problems.
Based on all the doctors that you've spoken with, what should parents know?
Finding solutions to help people understand what are the right choices to make for your family.
The CBS Evening News with Murrow O'Donnell on CBS.
I was born and raised on Chicago's South Side. I live within minutes of where I was raised. I think the most important thing to understand about Chicago is that it's not any one thing. I think we have an obligation as a news organization to provide a complete portrait of the city we serve. People want to know everything that's going on in a community, and that includes those good stories. That's what I see when I go to a place like the South Side. That's what I see when I go to the West Side. I know they exist, and we should bring those stories to our audience.
Despite the widespread tornadoes and strong storms, right now the number of power outages in the Chicago area is fairly low. We spotted crews from ComEd working hard this morning in Indian Head Park to restore power. Right now, 459 customers are without power. Most are on the south side and south and southwest suburbs. With more storm chances in the forecast, remember, CBS News Chicago is always streaming your first alert forecast. Find us on the News and Opinion page on Pluto TV and through the CBS News app on Fire TV and Roku.
We have new details now after gunshots ring out inside a grocery store. A young woman working at Mariano's in Evergreen Park was shot and killed. CBS 2's Suzanne Lemonnier is outside that store with the latest on the investigation as those who knew the victim remember her. Suzanne?
Joe, a Mariano's spokesperson says that thoughts and prayers are with everyone impacted by what happened inside this store this morning, and that now counseling is being offered for all employees.
Outside the Mariano's this morning, we saw employees hugging in the parking lot. Some were crying and wiping away tears. Evergreen Park police were called to the store on the 2500 block of West 95th Street just after 9 o'clock this morning.
We cautiously, approached and entered immediately based on the information that we had, and we believed at that time we did have a shooter inside of the building.
Evergreen Park Police Chief Michael D. Saunders says officers immediately evacuated the store, then went further inside to look for an active shooter.
That's when we located the victim in the back of the store. We never came upon the shooter inside of the store.
A 21-year-old woman shot multiple times was pronounced dead at the scene. Evergreen Park officers contacted Chicago police with a description of the suspect and his car. That information came from a previous domestic incident report involving the victim and her boyfriend when she worked at This Amazon Fresh in Oak Lawn. The suspect, believed to be that boyfriend, was arrested by Chicago police after they tracked his car to the north side through surveillance cameras. Andrew Parrish is the general manager of the White Castle right next to Mariano's. He says a Mariano's employee frantically ran inside, asking for help.
I just saw the team member from Mariano's run through the door, screaming that there was an active shooter. She just dropped to the floor and started, saying that she needed her kids. Yeah, so she called her kids and her kids came up. Once she pretty much almost collapsed on the floor, then, I just helped her up, put her in a chair, and, locked our doors for safety for my employees.
Now, that woman who was running to safety injured her ankle while she was running. An ambulance was called for her. Meantime, police are saying that a gun was recovered when that suspect was arrested. He was also seen on surveillance video inside the store with the victim before the shooting. In Evergreen Park, Suzanne Lemonnier, CBS 2 News.
Suzanne, thank you. Well, by the end of tonight, we'll be down to three candidates to lead the Chicago Police Department as superintendent. Tonight, during a public meeting, that key vote will take place. Then the names of the three nominees are sent to Mayor Brandon Johnson. He has 30 days to either select one of the finalists or reject them all and ask for a new list. Right now, Chicago police are asking for help finding the driver of this utility truck that hit a cyclist and drove off. It happened just before noon on Tuesday near Lincoln and Diversey in Lakeview. The truck was hauling a trailer and was last seen heading west on Diversey. That cyclist in serious condition. If you have any information, call Chicago police. Meanwhile, Illinois State Police have now identified the 3 victims killed in a crash involving a Greyhound bus.
Happened Wednesday morning on I-70, not far from St. Louis. 2 men were from out of state. The 3rd victim, Bradley Donovan, was from Springfield, Illinois. He was 47 years old.
For the first time, the FDA has approved an over-the-counter birth control pill. It's called O-pill and should be taken once a day, every day at the same time. The drug was initially approved for prescription use back in 1973, but the new recommendation would make it available to everyone. O-pill is expected to hit shelves early next year. It's not clear how much the drug will cost or if insurance companies will cover it.
So storms could be with us through 10 o'clock. Our models aren't really picking up on it that great. They've been going back and forth with the data, and all of the models don't agree. So it's just an isolated chance, even like we're seeing in Wisconsin, very isolated activity. And then during the day tomorrow, we're going to watch tomorrow afternoon for pop-up storms, but it's tomorrow night. Here's 11 o'clock tomorrow night when we will see that heavy rain move in and pass throughout the region. Saturday morning, leftover showers and storms, and then in the afternoon on Saturday, we could have some pop-up showers and thunderstorms as well. So our forecast for tonight does call for a stray storm, 67 degrees for the overnight low temperature, and then during the day tomorrow, scattered storms. They'll be more humid too, with a high temperature of 88 degrees. Rain chances about 50-50. So west winds all weekend. You know what that means? That's going to pull the warmth all the way to the sand. So if you're standing on the sand, we're not going to feel a lake breeze, especially on Sunday when we pick up those west winds to 20 miles per hour. So we'll see 80s all the way at the lakefront. So scattered storms may be around from time to time as we head on to the weekend. It's a 40% chance on Saturday, and then on Sunday it's a little less at 30%. So the reason it's unsettled, we're waiting on that cool front to pass in, and it's going to be coming by on Monday, touching off about a 30% chance of a shower. We'll hold temperatures close to 80 degrees, and then finally dry air moving in for Monday night. So keep an eye to the sky this evening for the chance of a thunderstorm.
Thanks, Mary Kay.
Pickle pizza. What do you guys think? I'm a no.
Stream whenever you want, wherever you want. We won't judge you. Keep streaming.
Here's what you get with your average local news stream. Here's what you get with CBS News Chicago. More breaking live coverage.
A closer look at the inauguration of the new mayor.
More impactful interviews.
Today, we're finding solutions.
More First Alert weather team coverage.
Here's all the clouds we've been dealing with all morning long.
More live content when you want it, wherever you are. CBS News Chicago. More of what you're streaming for.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
When people turn on the news, they're essentially saying, I trust you to tell me what happened today. That trust is never lost on me. I think about it all the time.
At the CBS Evening News, we focus on solutions. We look at a story and we say, how do we make it relevant to people's lives? So this is what we eat to live longer. Finding solutions, giving people context and depth, how much money we can spend on groceries, finding solutions to healthcare problems.
Based on all the doctors that you've spoken with, what should parents know?
Finding solutions to help people understand what are the right choices to make for your family.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell on CBS.
Everybody has a Chicago story. Everybody has a Chicago memory. You know, I grew up a few blocks east of Halsted on 155th Street, so I could look up and see the skyline. My mom worked downtown Chicago. She'd bring us downtown with her to work on the train, and just like, wow, you know, I feel like Stevie Wonder, skyscrapers and everything, you know, all of that, right? But it's something about the city, it just draws you in. That's what weaves it together. I mean, it feels like it's home. There's no other place like it on the planet.
The Tooth Fairy getting sucked with some soaring prices.
We had something really clever to say here, but this is just too cute. Keep streaming.
Giant trees toppled over, roofs and siding ripped off homes, a shed blown apart, and a motel destroyed. These are just a few of the images of widespread tornado damage in the Chicago area.
At least 7 confirmed tornadoes touched down, and the National Weather Service is still looking into several others tonight.
We have live team coverage of last night's powerful storms and the aftermath today. We begin with CBS 2's Sade Gray in Indian Head Park, where crews are still cleaning up. Sade?
Yeah, that's right, Joe and Erica. Crews worked to clear trees that blocked this road. You can see behind me that there's a tarp that's covering this building, but other crews worked to replace tiles that flew off of this townhome. Storm cleanup is underway in Indiana Head Park. South suburban residents like Barbara Madeo walked out of their homes and saw power lines knocked down, uprooted trees, and part of their roofs torn off. Madeo says she and her 92-year-old mother were hunkered down in the bathroom when the storms came through.
It's a windowless bathroom, and so she uses a walker, so I helped her with the walker. We got her in the bathroom, and before I knew it, its walls were shaking, the doors were shaking.
Madeo says as soon as the storms passed, neighbors checked on each other.
Everybody came together. It was so cool yesterday. Everybody was asking what they could do, pitching in, and I met people I never even knew were around here because it's all condos and townhouses.
She also saw their roof was gone and trees split in half.
Today was kind of devastating, you know, because the trees and, come here, puppy. The trees and my grandkids play here on the play set, and my mom had these trees for years. And that was hard.
The cleanup also continues in Hodgkins, where the plaza near LaGrange and Joliet Road was hit hard. Cell phone video from a viewer shows what appears to be a tornado forming. Alexis Tucker works for the Village of Hodgkins Emergency Service Disaster Agency. She was on patrol at the shopping center when she saw the roof fly off target.
It was pretty bright out, and then all of a sudden these dark clouds just came out of nowhere. And then the clouds were moving fast, could actually see the rotation.
Tucker says that's the fastest she's ever driven. She was driving to open the storm shelter for residents. She's just glad no one was injured. Reporting in Indian Head Park, Sade Gray, CBS 2 News.
Marshall Harris here. It has been a rough go for the boys